Hello everyone. So today I'll be talking about what is mitochondrial complex 1 deficiency. So as a brief introduction, cells require energy to carry out everyday functions. So whether you're lifting weights using muscle tissue or engaging in complex math problems, the cells making up the tissue of your body need energy to function like a car needs gasoline to move. But how does the cell produce energy? So it does this using mitochondria, and the mitochondria produces ATP, which I will talk about in the following slides. So when you ingest food, it becomes digested, and the body produces a sugar called glucose, which is then imported into the cells. And then at this point, the mitochondria will come into play and utilize this glucose to produce ATP. So when you combine glucose with oxygen that we breathe, the mitochondria produce water, CO2, which we exhale, and the molecule known as ATP, which is the energy currency of the cell that enables the cell to carry out basically all of its functions. So this was kind of a very brief introduction of how ATP is created. Now I will get a little more in depth. So the mitochondria has an inner and outer membrane, and within the inner membrane you will find 5 protein complexes. Complexes 1 through 4 are involved in a process called the electron transport chain, and you will see why it's called that in a moment. So by the time glucose has been used, it has basically created 2 molecules known as NADH and FADH2. And these molecules provide electrons, which are transported across complexes 1 through 4. And each time these electrons are transported from one complex to the next, hydrogen ions are transferred across the membrane. And this transfer creates an imbalance where the protons want to balance out between on either side of the inner membrane. However, the ions cannot pass through the membrane, they must pass through complex 5. So as the hydrogen ion passes through complex 5, an ADP and P molecule are combined to form an ATP molecule, which can then be used in a variety of cellular functions. So as you can imagine, any problems in one of these proteins can drastically affect how ATP is produced in the mitochondria, and by extension, normal cellular, tissue, and organ functions. So mitochondrial complex 1 deficiency occurs due to a shortage of complex 1 or a loss of its function. And this can be caused by mutations in genes involved in making or assembling the protein complex 1. The symptoms of this disease are highly variable. They range from abnormal brain functioning to uncoordinated movement, muscle pain, fatigue, and many more. Now, tissues and organs that use a lot of energy are the most affected, which makes sense. So these include the nervous system, the heart, skeletal muscles, and unfortunately, the life expectancy for people with this disease is a few months to a few years after birth. So a host of downstream effects occur irrespective of the functioning of protein complex 1. This includes the altered mitochondrial morphology, a decrease in the mitochondrial membrane integrity, as well as an elevation of damaging reactive oxygen species. So combining reduced cellular energy and reactive oxygen species, many studies have found that there's an increase in cell death with this complex 1 deficiency. So as far as treatment options go, they're quite limited. And there are a number of reasons for that. One of them being these diseases are quite rare, so not a lot of funding goes towards trying to find a treatment for them. And the treatments that are available, they're quite variable from patient to patient in terms of their response and also life expectancy. So some people have looked at dietary treatments, metabolic therapy, including the keto diet, which is a high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet. So this diet has been proposed for some mitochondrial diseases, but not all. And more research needs to be done to figure out which diseases will benefit most from a keto diet. There's also supplements like coenzyme Q10, which has antioxidant properties, so it would reduce the levels of damaging reactive oxygen species, and also riboflavin supplementation. Riboflavin is a key building block of complex 1 and complex 2, and it has been shown to be effective in treating the disease to an extent. Clinical trials are ongoing for many of these diseases, and they're looking for many participants. So there are also a few emerging therapies that have come to light in the past couple of years, one of them being gene editing therapies. So if you could correct the mutated gene that's responsible, say, for a complex 1 deficiency, you could fix the problem. A paper came out in Nature Medicine in 2018. They injected mice with what are called zinc finger nucleases, which will edit very specific strands of DNA. And what they found was at 6 months, the mutated mitochondrial DNA had dropped in muscle tissue by around 50% compared to their controls. So pretty promising. However, it's probably going to take a number of years for these types of therapies to start being used in humans. And with that said, thank you for listening.